The sound of early morning call to prayer echoed through the small, crowded neighborhood as Mama Eze sat outside their one-room apartment peeling yam for breakfast. Her hands, worn from years of hard labor, moved steadily as she prepared food for her only son. Life had been unkind to her, but she had never complained. She sighed deeply, lost in thought. Eze, her only child, was her world. His father, Emeka, had walked out on them when Eze was barely 5, chasing after another woman and leaving her to fend for their only son alone. It wasn't just the abandonment that hurt, it was the betrayal. She had loved Emeka deeply, only to discover he had never truly valued her. Even after he left, she heard tales of him gallivanting with different women, never once checking in on the child he left behind. Despite the heartbreak, Mama Eze had vowed to give her son the best life she could afford. She worked as a food vendor at the market, waking up early before dawn to prepare food for traders and laborers. Some days were good, others bad, but she never gave up. She had wanted him to go to school, to have a better future than hers, but money was always tight. The little she made went into feeding and clothing him. "Good morning, Mama." Eze's deep voice pulled her out of her thoughts. He emerged from the small house, stretching his tall, lean frame. At 25, he had grown into a fine young man, hardworking, responsible, and determined to change their lives. "Good morning, my son. Come and eat before you start your day," she said with a tired smile. Eze sat beside her and took a plate of the steaming yam. As he ate, he looked at his mother and felt a deep sense of responsibility. She had sacrificed everything for him, and he had promised himself that he would take good care of her. "Mama, don't worry. One day I will make enough money for you to stop struggling," he said with determination. She smiled. "My son, all I want is for you to be happy and to stay on the right path. Money will come, but don't lose yourself in the process." Eze nodded. He had no formal education, but he had dreams, and for now, his tricycle was his ticket to a better life. Eze soon relocated to the city, where he believed he could use his tricycle to make more money. Eze pushed his tricycle out of the small compound onto the dusty street. The morning sun was already creeping into the sky, casting a golden glow over the bustling neighborhood. He wiped his forehead with the back of his hand and climbed into his tricycle, ready to start work for the day. His tricycle wasn't brand new, but it was his most prized possession. It had taken him years of savings, from carrying bags of rice in the market, assisting mechanics, and running errands to afford it. Even then, his mother had to chip in the last bit of money to help him buy it. As he drove towards the main road, he spotted his friend, Junior, standing by the roadside, adjusting his own tricycle mirror. "Eze, my G!" Junior called out, flashing a wide grin. "Junior Afana," Eze responded, parking beside him. Junior laughed and clapped Eze's shoulder playfully. "My brother, we dey hustle. How business now?" Eze sighed. "E no too bad. But you know say every day get im own wahala, sha." True talk, my G. But see, we gats enjoy small now. This life no be only work, Junior said. Eze shook his head with a smile. Junior had always been the fun-loving type, always talking about women and enjoyment. While Eze focused on work, Junior balanced his time between hustling and chasing girls. Just then, another friend, Dapo, drove up in his own tricycle, honking loudly. Dapo was the quiet one, but cunning in the group. He was known for his smooth talk and always had a way of making people do things his way. "My boys, how market na?" Dapo greeted, parking beside them. "We dey," Junior responded. Make we go park for that junction. Today go make sense die. Eze hesitated. He wasn't one to waste time before work. But the truth was, he enjoyed the morning talks. They drove to a nearby junction where other tricycle riders were gathered, waiting for passengers. Some were already loading, while others stood around cracking jokes and discussing politics. As they chatted, a man in a white shirt approached Eze. "Oga, I dey go will say how much?" the man asked. Eze quickly straightened up. 200 naira, sir. The man nodded and climbed in. Eze started his engine, ready to begin his day of hustle. As he drove off, he heard Junior calling after him. "No forget say we get flex this evening, no." Eze chuckled and waved. He had no interest in their kind of flexing, but he didn't want to argue. He had work to do. His passenger kept glancing at his wristwatch, clearly in a hurry. "Oga, abeg, no let me late for work, oh," the man urged. Eze nodded. "No wahala, sir. I go rush small small, but may we no go jam gbese for road oh." As he approached the man's stop at Wuse, he quickly parked by the roadside. The man handed him a 500 naira note. "Ah, Oga, I no get change oh," Eze said, rummaging through his pockets. The man frowned, waved his hand. No worry, keep the change." Eze's eyes widened. "Ah, thank you, sir, thank you." The man nodded and hurried away. Eze smiled to himself. This was a good start for the day. It was a very busy day as he kept picking up and dropping passengers. As the day stretched on, Eze carried more passengers, earning just enough to keep himself going. His back ached from the long hours of sitting, but he pushed through. He wasn't just working for himself. He was working for his mother, the woman who had given everything for him. By the time the sun began to set, he was exhausted. But he knew his day wasn't over yet. He had promised Junior and Dapo he would meet up with them in the evening. He wasn't interested in drinking nor chasing girls, but sometimes being around his friends gave him a little distraction from the struggles of life. Little did he know, that night might change his life forever. By the time Eze arrived at the usual drinking spot, the evening had settled over the city and the air was thick, with scents of grilled meat and cheap alcohol. The place was alive with loud music, the chatter of excited customers, and the occasional laughter from drunk men boasting about their conquest. Junior and Dapo were already seated at a corner, bottles of beer sweating on the table, as they dug into a plate of peppered suya. "My guy, you two dey form busy," Junior teased as Eze approached. Dapo grinned. "Na so e go dey walk like say him be married man. We no go even know when he go marry sef." Eze chuckled, shaking his head. "Abeg, make una leave me. Person no fit hustle again." Junior scoffed. "What kind of hustle? This life no be only work oh. Man must enjoy small. If you die today, na another person go use your tricycle work." Eze waved off the joke and pulled out a chair. He wasn't much of a drinker, but he enjoyed the occasional suya and good conversation. A cold bottle of malt was placed in front of him. He took a sip as he listened to his friends brag about the latest escapades with women. Soon, the conversation shifted. "Eze, you know say you never carry babe before?" That was said, eyeing him with amusement. Junior laughed. My guy, true talk oh. You no be man yet oh. We dey talk of enjoyment, you dey talk of work. You don't ever taste woman before, you be Jew guy." Eze frowned, feeling a little uncomfortable. He had never really thought about it. Neither did he feel the need to prove anything to anyone. But with both of them staring at him, he suddenly felt like a joke. Dapo leaned in, lowering his voice. "See, we get solution for you today." Eze raised an eyebrow. "Which kind of solution be that?" Junior gestured towards the far end of the bar. See that babe wey wear red gown? Fine babe, correct babe. Na today we meet am. She dey with her friends, go follow am yarn. We don already arrange am for you. Eze followed their gaze and saw a striking young woman with deep brown skin and a graceful figure. She was laughing with her friends, sipping from her glass. She looked irresistibly beautiful. Dapo nudged him. Guy, this na your chance. Just flex, no strings attached. Eze hesitated. He remembered his mother's warnings about girls, but his ego was at stake before his friends. He made his choice. What if she no gree? He asked. Junior smirked. Leave that one for us, guy. Just go meet her and talk well. We dey your back like eczema. Eze swallowed hard. He had never approached a woman before, and he wasn't sure how to start. But with Junior and Dapo cheering him on, something inside him shifted. Maybe, just this once, he needed to prove that he wasn't just about work. Taking a deep breath, he stood up and walked towards the woman in red. Eze adjusted his shirt and wiped his sweaty palms on his jeans as he approached the woman in red. His heart pounded in his chest, not because he was in love or excited, but because this was an uncharted territory for him. She looked up as he neared her table. She smiled as if she already knew why he was there. Good evening, Eze said, clearing his throat. She tilted her head slightly, still smiling. Good evening. You look like someone who doesn't come here often. Eze scratched the back of his head. You are right. My friends dragged me out. She chuckled. I see. Up close, she was even more beautiful. Her skin was flawless, her nails neatly painted. There was an air around her. Even if Eze wanted to change his mind now, he couldn't. I'm Eze, he introduced himself, trying not to sound too nervous. She raised an eyebrow. And I'm Amara. Nice to meet you, Amara, Eze said. She nodded, taking a sip from her glass. There was a brief silence before she spoke up again. Your friend sent you, didn't they? Eze opened his mouth to deny it, but then sighed, knowing there was no point lying. Something like that, Amara smirked. They think you need a woman to be a man, abi? Eze chuckled awkwardly. Something like that? She stared at him for a moment, then leaned forward slightly. And what do you think? He hesitated. The truth was, he wasn't even sure anymore. He had always believed in hard work, staying focused, but tonight, the pressure to prove himself was overwhelming. I don't know, he admitted. Amara leaned back and smiled. At least you're honest. They talked for a little while, and Eze found himself relaxing. She was easy to talk to, not pushy like his friends had made it to seem. But as the night wore on, his friends kept sending him signals from their table, urging him to make a move. Finally gathering his courage, he asked, Would you like to come over to my place? Amara's smile immediately faded. She studied him for a long moment before shaking her head. It's too sudden. Eze, maybe another time on. Eze's stomach twisted. His friends were watching. If he didn't go back with her, they would mock him. He had come too far to turn back now. But why not tonight, he pressed. Amara sighed. Because some things shouldn't be rushed. He could hear Junior's voice in his head, calling him a coward. Dapo would say he had wasted an opportunity. His pride was on the line. Amara, just this once now. It doesn't even need to mean anything to you. I swear, I'll treat you well, he pleaded, making a sign of swearing, touching his tongue with his index finger. He pleaded, but his voice was laced with desperation. Her expression darkened slightly. Eze, I'm giving you a chance to walk away from something you might regret. He forced a smile. Regret, ke? No way, nah. Just one night, Amara begged, nah. Amara gave him a long stare and said, Eze, walk away while you can, no. Come on, Amara, it's not that deep, Izzy pleaded. Amara sighed deeply. All right. A wave of relief washed over him. But there was something unsettling about the way she agreed, like someone resigned to fate. As they left the bar together, his friends cheered behind him, celebrating his victory. But deep inside, an uneasy feeling began to creep into his chest. If only he had listened to it. As he walked beside Amara as they left the bar, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. The cheers from Junior and Dakbo still rang in his ears, but now that he was alone with her, an eerie silence settled between them. He glanced at her, trying to read her expression, but she was unreadable, calm, almost detached. His room was not far from the bar, just a few streets away. As they walked, Eze felt the weight of the moment pressing on him. Was he really going to do this to prove a point? You're quiet, Amara said, breaking the silence. Eze forced a chuckle. I guess I'm just not used to this. She gave a small smile but said nothing. He pushed open the door to his room and turned on a standing fan that groaned as it oscillated. You can sit, he said, motioning to the bed. Amara sat gracefully, crossing her legs. She glanced around, ran her fingers through the bedspread on the bed. You live alone, she said. Yes, he nodded. My mother lives in the village. Amara hummed softly, then fixed her gaze on him. So what now? Eze swallowed. He had no idea how to proceed. He had never done this before. His friend made it seem so easy, but now that he was here, standing in front of her, doubts clouded his mind. Amara sighed. Eze, I'll ask you again, are you sure about this? She wasn't teasing or flirting. She was serious. It was as if she was giving him one last chance to rethink. But his ego wouldn't let him back out now. Yes, he said firmly. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. All right. She slowly unzipped her dress, letting it slide off her shoulders. The moment felt surreal, almost like a dream. But as Eze moved closer, something strange happened. Amara placed a gentle hand on his chest, stopping him. Her eyes darkened, her voice low. You will regret this, Eze. A cold shiver ran down his spine. What? Before he could finish, she allowed him to continue. But everything about it felt wrong. Her body was just there. Her spirit seemed absent. She didn't even say a word, didn't even react. It was as if she really wasn't there at all. When it was all over, she sat up and slowly dressed. Eze, still breathing heavily, turned to her, feeling a strange wave of guilt and discomfort wash over him. Amara, are you okay? He asked. She didn't respond. She finished dressing, adjusted her hair and stood up. Without looking at him, she walked to the door, opened it in a bid to leave. Amara, wait, Eze called, suddenly feeling an overwhelming need to apologize. She paused, but didn't turn around, facing front. I warned you, she said. Then she stepped out and disappeared into the night. Eze jumped up, rushing after her, but the moment he stepped outside, she was gone, completely gone. The street was empty except for few late-night wanderers. It was as if she had vanished into the thin air. A deep, consuming fear wrapped around his chest. He staggered back inside, his breath shaky. His hands felt cold, his body weak. Something was terribly wrong. He barely made it to the bed before his vision blurred, and before he could even process what was happening, darkness swallowed him whole. The morning sun had just begun to cast its golden glow over the compound when Mama Aisha, the elderly woman who lived in the room opposite Eze's room, stepped out to sweep the corridor. She always woke up early, and today was no different. As she swept, her sharp eyes darted towards Izzy's door. Something was off. His door was slightly open. Izzy was always careful. He never left his door ajar, even when he stepped out for a moment. Mama Aisha frowned. She paused, listening for any sound from his room, but there was only silence. Izzy, she called, tapping on the wooden door lightly. No response. A sudden wave of unease settled in her stomach. She pushed the door open a little more and peered inside. What she saw made her drop her broom with a loud clatter. Izzy lay on the floor, his body cold and stiff, his eyes half open but lifeless. His lips were slightly parted, as if he had wanted to call out for help but never got the chance. His once vibrant face was frozen in an expression of shock and fear. Mama Aisha screamed tore through the compound. Neighbors rushed out of their rooms, startled by the piercing cry. In seconds, a small crowd had gathered at Izzy's doorway. Wetin happen? Who dey shout this early morning? Mama Aisha was trembling, her hands covering her mouth. Izzy is dead, she wailed. The murmurs grew into loud cries as some of the women began lamenting. The men pushed through, stepping inside to confirm for themselves. One of the young men, Tunde, crouched beside Izzy and shook him gently. Izzy, wake up, Joe. What's happened? He placed a hand on Izzy's chest and recoiled instantly. He's cold, very cold. Someone in the crowd suggested calling an ambulance. And within minutes, a group of men lifted Izzy's lifeless body and rushed him to the nearest hospital. The doctor took one look at him and shook his head. I'm sorry, but he has been gone for hours. The room fell into a heavy silence. No one could comprehend what just happened. Izzy had been full of life just the night before. How could he suddenly be dead? Mama Aisha broke down in tears. Who will tell his mother? Who will tell Mama Izzy? The question hung in the air like a dark cloud. Somewhere far away in the village, an unsuspecting mother was about to receive the worst news of her life. The village of Umoche was quiet that morning. Mama Izzy sat outside her small house, peeling cassava. Her thoughts, as always, were on her only child, Izzy. Izzy usually called her in the mornings before he headed out with his tricycle. But today, there had been no call. Maybe he was just busy, she thought, smiling to herself. He was a hard-working boy, always thinking about how to make life better for them. Her neighbor, Mama Ejike, soon joined her, settling on a wooden stool. Mama Izzy, you look lost in thought too. I hope all is well. Mama Izzy chuckled. I am just thinking about my son. He did not call this morning. Maybe he is busy with work. Mama Ejike smiled. Your son is a good boy, yo. May God continue to bless him. Amen, my sister. Amen, oh. They continued peeling cassava in companionable silence until they heard the sound of a motorcycle approaching fast from the main road. It stopped abruptly in front of Mama Izzy's compound, kicking up dust. A young man, one of Izzy's childhood friends, who had also moved to the city, jumped down, his face drenched in sweat, his breathing heavy. Mama Izzy stood up, her heart already racing. Obinna, why are you here in such a hurry? What happened? Obinna opened his mouth, but no words came out, his hands trembling as he wiped his face. Mama Izzy, so something has happened, he finally said, his voice breaking. The old woman's knees weakened. Obinna, talk to me. Where is my son? Obinna swallowed hard, his eyes glistening with unushed tears. Mama, Izzy is gone. For a moment, everything around her seemed frozen. The pounding of her heart drowned out every other sound. She shook her head violently. God forbid! What are you saying? Mama Ejike grabbed her hand. Obinna, don't joke with such things. So where is Eze? Obinna fell to his knees, sobbing. He was found dead in his room this morning. A loud piercing scream erupted from Mama Eze's throat. She clenched her chest as her legs gave way beneath her. If not for Mama Ejike's quick reflex, she would have hit her head on the ground. Eze cannot die. No, not my son. My son cannot die. Somebody tell me this is a lie, she wailed, struggling against the arms holding her. Tears flowed freely from the women around her as the reality of the news settled in. Some men gathered, whispering in hushed tones, shaking their heads in sorrow. Mama Eze wept uncontrollably, her mind unable to process how her only child, her pride, her hope, her everything was gone just like that. She had suffered all her life to raise him alone. She had sacrificed everything for him. She had prayed for his success, his happiness, his future. Now all that was gone. Her anguished cries echoed through the village, carrying with them the weight of a mother's deepest sorrow. Eze's death shook Dapo and Junior to their bones. They had their suspicions that it was the girl from the bar that ended their friend, but they had no evidence. The girl from the bar, Amara, was never seen again. Dapo and Junior swore never to pick up girls ever again. Moral of this story: abstinence still remains key. Picking up girls for sexual gratifications has always had its consequences, ranging from sexually transmitted diseases, destiny exchange, and destructions. Eventually, death in the case of Eze. Unfortunately, it was his first and last. Let us always listen to voice of reasoning over our ego. Do you think it was fair on Eze? Did Eze's mother survive the shock? What does Amara stand to gain in all? Please kindly share your thoughts with me in the comment section. Kindly like, share, subscribe if you haven't by now. Till I bring another interesting African story your way, God bless you.